I've heard said that most people only watch the first 30 seconds of YouTube videos, so if I can get one point across, it's this. We took delivery of this car in November 2021. It's now November 2024. That's 3 years. During that time, we've spent $0 in maintenance and repairs. Does anything else I say after this really matter? I'm going to go over the things that I like about this car and the things that I don't like about this car, having driven it for 3 years. But before I do so, most people who are watching electric vehicle 3-year owner reviews want to know about the battery degradation. So let's get into that first. Okay, what everyone wants to know with a 3-year-old EV is how much battery range you have lost out of the battery pack. This is a CATL, I think it's a 77 kilowatt hour usable pack. Initially, it was EPA rated for 240 miles of range, which is about what I saw. I think I saw a little bit over sometimes, a little bit under, depending on conditions and variables. And had it for 3 years. We are now charging up to 100%. Let me go ahead and flip the camera around. Okay, we're at 99 of 100%, currently in the process of charging. And according to the onboard computer, not the Google Android Automotive, we have 200 miles of range. But one thing to keep in mind about this, it is dependent on previous trips. And I just got off a very long interstate road trip, so it knocks this down. The way this onboard computer works, it looks at the past couple of trips you've done, and then it factors that in. I've been seeing this right around 230 miles of range when I'm at 100%, and that's really not material. What we're going to do is we're charging up to 100%. We are going to drive the car. I'm going to reset the trip computer. And right there, reset trip meter. Okay, and we're going to see how many miles we get. That's really the only way of doing this. And my daily grind goes to and from a train station. There's a little bit of interstate travel, a little bit of local travel. I also go to church functions throughout the week. In fact, that's where I'm headed right now. It's a Sunday evening. I'm headed to go participate in a church function. Some local driving, some interstate driving is a good mix. I don't have any interstate road trips planned, so this will be a pretty good representation of how much real world range we have, because EPA does factor in both interstate and local traffic. So let's go ahead and get to it. Okay, day one, we are at 100%, getting ready to head out. This is the end of day one. We're at 90%, and we have so far driven 32.4 miles, but that efficiency is much higher than is common. The reason it is because on the way to my church function, I hit some event traffic that was dragging our speed down to near idle for a good portion of the trip. So it inflated our efficiency. We're not going to be able to maintain anything like that for the rest of the week. All right, we're going to call it a night and start again tomorrow.
An eternity later.
Okay, this is the end of day two. We're at 73%, and we have 69.2 miles traveled. And by my math, we're on track to do 240 miles, because when we crossed the 75% mark, we were over 60 miles traveled already. So if we keep that up, we're going to hit 240, and that would surprise me. I don't think that's going to be the case, but we'll see what happens. We are at the end of day three, 65% state of charge, and let's see how many miles. We've got 86.4 miles traveled. I'm going to save everyone the repetitiveness of what I'm going through on my daily grind here, going to fast forward a few days, so I'll see everyone in the future. Okay, just a quick update. I've hit 50% on day 5. The mileage is 116.5 miles, so we are trending a little bit below the 240, which is the EPA estimate, but not too bad. Day 6, we are at 25%, and miles traveled is 172.5. Check back in. We're at 10%, getting ready to enter the dreaded turtle mode. We are at 213 miles, 213.2 miles. Okay, we are at 7%, and as you can see from right here, we are in full turtle mode, which means you see this orange line, we've got reduced power. We're gonna keep going a little bit further. We made it home with 2%. I have to admit that was a little frightening. And the trip computer says we've got 8 miles left, and we're gonna go with that instead of trying to drive it down to 0. The trip says we have 235.9, so 236 plus 8 miles is 244 miles, which is over EPA. So go figure. Okay, as I said in the opening of this video, the reason that I like this car the most, and electric vehicles in general, is the lack of routine maintenance or repairs. They're very reliable vehicles. Let's go over the systems that an electric vehicle doesn't have. It doesn't have an exhaust system, it doesn't have a serpentine belt, it doesn't have a radiator and cooling system in the traditional sense of the word. It doesn't have a transmission. It doesn't have oil pans, oil gaskets, it doesn't have any of that. It doesn't even have an engine. What it does have is a series of batteries. Actually, the word battery means a bunch of pieces of energy in a unit, or in series, it's called a battery, and motors. In the case of this car, it has 2 motors. And what I've found with the 2 motors in the Volvo XC40 Recharge, and later models that came with an option for only 1 motor, is that the pickup is insanely fast. I think it's a 4.6 0 to 60 speed time, and it's too much for me. It's actually a little frightening, the amount of pickup this car has. So without a doubt, the one thing I like most about this car, and electric cars in general, is the lack of routine maintenance. If I could have a car that is free of breaking down, that I don't have to wake up on a Tuesday morning to some kind of mystery oil on the floor of my garage and then hand over the keys to my mechanic for 2 days while he comes back and tells me I need $600 in order to repair blank to blank blank. I could just have a car that works all the time. That to me is definitely worth it. And these cars are not more expensive than internal combustion cars anymore, so it really does make sense, at least in my mind it does. I don't know if that's the same for you, but for me, electric vehicles, the reliability is the principal feature. Everything else is really secondary after that. Let's go over some of those secondary features that the Volvo XC40 Recharge has that I've grown very fond of. It has a sunroof that's retractable into multiple different positions. You could either crack it open, you could bring it back a partial way, or you could bring it back all the way. And it also has a sunshade. So if you want it all the way closed with the sunshade on a hot summer day, it does that as well. I think that's very versatile and very thoughtful. There's lots of things in this car that are very thoughtful. Another thing, for instance, the interior creature comforts are very developed, I guess is a way of describing it. For instance, there's a little compartment for a trash can, which I really like, just to be able to put little wrappers or whatever that are not floating around the interior of the cabin. It has a place to put your phone. It has heated seats and a heated steering wheel, and places to put RFID cards. In the back, there's a way to fold up the back compartment in order to hang grocery bags, and also create a compartmental area for putting grocery bags so they're not rolling all over the back of the hatchback. So lots of very well thought out interior creature comfort details that I've really grown to appreciate. Another thing is, towards the second half of my 3 years of ownership, Volvo pushed a software update that enabled YouTube and Amazon Prime Video. So while you're in a charging spot like this, if you want to kick back and watch some videos while you're charging, it's now available in the center console. That was also very thoughtful. And they don't charge any extra for the cellular usage like Tesla and some other people do. Like, we have a Cadillac Lyric, and you have to pay extra in order to gain access to features like that. Now let's talk about things that I don't like about this car. And without a shadow of a doubt, the thing that I don't like most is when you put the car in reverse, the backup camera pops up onto the center console screen. And if you don't disable the feature to auto engage lock, if it detects something in your path, it will do so and seize the brakes and sound an alarm. It's very frightening. There's no other way of describing it. And it's trying to instill a force feedback to the driver of safety. And Volvo's design philosophy is to err on the side of safety when they put in features like this. So there's no way of disabling that to have it automatically not occur every single time. You have to disable it every single time you put it in reverse. Now, I back into my garage every time I pull into my home. And so I'd say maybe 1 time out of 10 or 2 times out of 10, that feature will arbitrarily engage because it thinks it sees something when there's nothing there. And so I've gotten into the habit a long time ago to every time I put the car in reverse, I automatically disable that feature. And I wish I didn't have to do that. And I understand Volvo's philosophy to err on the side of safety, but in this particular case, with my pulling into the garage on a routine basis, I would just like to disable that feature so I could drive like I normally do and not have to constantly press the button every time I put it into reverse. Secondly, the car is not very efficient. It's not designed to be aerodynamic. It's just a normal car, and so the efficiency is not great. Typically, I see somewhere between 2.5 to 3 miles per kilowatt hour. So it's not going to win any efficiency awards. So there is that. In my case, I'd rather have a nice looking car than something that's designed like a rifle slug to penetrate the air with the least resistance. That to me is not really desirable. I'd rather have just a nice looking car that I could hop in and drive around. So for me, that's not that big of a deal, the efficiency. But it is something that I am aware of, that this car is not as efficient as other electric vehicles. Secondly, the range being 240 miles is not terrific. There are cars like I mentioned, we have a Cadillac Lyriq, and that does over 300 miles of range. And that extra 50, 60, 70 miles of range really does make a difference when you're doing road tripping, because not only does the car go further without having to be recharged, but the larger battery pack can charge at a faster rate. So there's 2 benefits there. This car, though, is fine. You know, it's not terrific, but I've grown accustomed to having to stop every 200 miles, which is about every 3 hours, and charging at a top speed of 155 kilowatts. So one other thing I found that I don't like about the Volvo XC40 Recharge is I wash the car myself most of the time. And this windshield wiper will pick up so I can get the glass underneath it, but this one does not. It bumps into the hood, and I don't really understand what the design philosophy is there. And I understand there's like a disconnect, but still, it would be nice if I could just flip this windshield wiper up at the pivot point so I could wash the glass like I do most cars. But in this case, I could only do the driver's side. So here in the United States, the Volvo and Polestar models of cars just recently got access to the Tesla supercharger network using an adapter like this. And that will allow you to gain access to 17,000 of the 23,000 Tesla superchargers that are throughout the United States, the largest charging network in the United States. And because this car can only charge at a maximum throughput of 155 kilowatts, you don't really need to go to those bigger 350 kilowatt stations. So the Tesla superchargers work just fine. And so that is a big advantage and something that just recently happened. Definitely a positive. So there you have it, the battery loss of range over 3 years of time, and also a owner's thoughts on what it's like to have the Volvo XC40 Recharge as your daily driver. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you very much for watching.